This is G for Yourself. Now, here's Gio.
Hi, and welcome to Chi for Yourself. Thanks for being with us wherever you are in the world today. We offer this program as another tool to help you maintain the good chi, or essential energy, and to help you maintain a genuine life. Our guest on this show is Dr. Bernie Siegel. Bernie is a renowned medical doctor and spiritual teacher. He's an author and speaker who actually retired from general and pediatric surgical practice back in 1989, and he has since dedicated himself to humanizing the medical establishment's approach to patients and empowering patients to induce their own healing. He's making his second visit to the program. Bernie is the author of The Art of Healing, Uncovering Your Inner Wisdom and Potential for Self-Healing. And Bernie, since you were a successful surgeon and decided to retire, even though you were, I assume, enjoying all the benefits of a surgeon's life, what prompted you to say, you know what, successful or not, I'm going to change directions?
Well, I, incorporated into my practice all the things I'm doing now without being a surgeon. And being the surgeon was part of the learning process. I mean, from talking to people under anesthesia, asking them to draw themselves in the operating room and then see what their images were like, playing music in the operating room, seeing that you could do major surgery on people and they wake up without pain. And a lot of this, as I said, had to do with my interaction with them as well as uncovering what was within them. If you saw surgery as, being, disfigured and tortured and tormented and so forth, you're going to have a horrible post-operative period. But when people, and that's why I get into drawings, people drew it as, filled with God and love and flowers and the surgeon hugging them, it was a totally different experience. And these are things that you're not taught in medical school. And I got so involved with people, because let's put it this way, I was also running support groups on my day off and spending all nights writing to people, before emails and things. And I could see that when you help people live, because that's literally what changed me. One of my patients with breast cancer, she said, "You're a nice guy, I feel better when I'm in the office with you, but I can't take you home with me, so I need to know how to live between office visits." And because, again, doctors are not trained to take care of people. They're trained to treat disease. And I was in pain because I cared about people. And so I started the support groups to help people live. And then you notice that if you help people live, there's this benefit, the side effect. They don't die when they're supposed to. And even diseases disappear. And what I noticed from patients was they always had a story. When I say notice, I started giving lectures, and I'd be out talking, look down in the audience, and see somebody I thought was dead. And I'd go over to them after I was done and say, "Hey, what's going on? What are you doing here?" And they'd say, "Well, there's no point in going back to the office if everybody thought I was going to die." So I went home, and then they would tell the story of what they did. And then they noticed I didn't die. And I have letters that end with, "And now I'm so busy I'm killing myself. Help, where do I go from here?" A lady was supposed to die in 2 months. Another guy went to Colorado to die in the mountains because it was beautiful there. When I didn't get invited to the funeral for a year, I was very angry at the family because I was sure he was dead. So I called them up to criticize them for ignoring my desire to come to the funeral, because I said to them, "Call me when he dies. I'll be out there." And he answered the phone. He said, "It was so beautiful here, I forgot to die." Now, that's him. I mean, there are people in Colorado who need to move to Florida. But again, it was when people did things to enjoy the time they had, it changed their body chemistry, and their body got the message. See, the simple side of the coin that everybody experiences, Monday morning we had more heart attacks, strokes, suicides, and illnesses. And it's not an accident. It's our internal chemistry. So I always say to people, if I had to summarize everything you and I are going to talk about, it's love your life and love your body. And then things happen, that help you stay healthy.
Yeah.
Because when you study actors in a tragedy versus a comedy, the tragedy lowers immune function, raises stress hormone levels. The comedy raises immune function and lower stress hormone levels. And, we see this in studies that are finally getting done because all this isn't so crazy now.
Mm-hmm.
You see,
Mm-hmm.
I was, nobody wanted to support research because, you're nuts. What difference does it make if somebody's in a group or laughs or, listens to music or meditates? But now we have all these studies. So loneliness affects the genes that control immune function.
In the
Cancer
book,
patients, who laughed lived longer than the control group who didn't laugh for no reason.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned the drawings, and there are 70 color illustrations in the book. And before actually reading the book, I thumbed through the drawings, and most of them just seemed pleasant enough. And yet, when I read about them, they pointed out some serious problems. How is it the drawings work to expose situations that patients might not articulate? Is it flat-out denial, or is this a case of consciousness running?
I call it making the invisible visible. Because, it's like when you go to bed tonight and have a dream, it's not necessarily something that you consciously were aware of all day long. Or it may be a problem you were aware of, but the dream tells you the best way to deal with it if you're open to these things. And what I call, you don't keep a lid on and you pay attention to those inner feelings and images and so forth. And, see, again, doctors are not taught, and I mean this literally, I have never met a doctor who was told, because I found this while I was reading, that Carl Jung interpreted dream and diagnosed a brain tumor. And I have many stories in my books about people who went to sleep and in a dream learned that they had cancer, were told how to treat the disease. I mean, a whole host of things that are just incredible. You'd say, how does this happen? Well, it's that inner wisdom, the collective consciousness that can speak to you as well as your body in dreams. Now, what started me on that was drawing a picture for Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And then she started asking me questions about my life. Now, I draw an outdoor scene that is from my imagination for guided imagery. I take a walk in this lovely place and so forth and meditate. And she started out with, why is 11 important? I said, I've been doing this 11 months. Why, yes, there are 11 trees. What are you covering up? I said, why are you asking that? Because I was with her to help me with all the feelings I was burying and covering up. But, it's like she doesn't know that. What are you covering up? I said, why do you ask that? Because this is a white piece of paper. You made a mountain with snow, but you took a white crayon and added a layer where there's snow. You didn't need the white crayon. What are you covering up? And I got into my feelings, and that led me back to the hospital with a box of crayons. And that's where, again, the patient started drawing, and I realized this is not just psychological, it's physical. They were portraying their anatomy. It helped me make decisions about treatment, about surgery, about all kinds of things. And could work it out with them because it was their drawing, to point out to them, if you draw the devil giving you poison, you're in big trouble. Or an operating room, which is a black box and nobody's there taking care of you. So I could work with people to either not have that treatment. You see, because there are people who say, I don't want to eat vegetables, I'd rather have an operation. There are people who say, I don't want chemotherapy, but they draw a gorgeous picture of it because they intuitively know it's good for them, but they're fearful of it because of what they've heard about it. So it helped them make the right decisions. And as I said, it was incredible to see, and many of the drawings show the anatomy, show that we know the future. That includes life and death issues, as well as a child who draws a picture of the operating room she's never been in. Because at the hospital, they began making coloring books for the kids because everybody got really interested then. Oh, wow, At first, again, Siegel's nuts. He makes his patients draw pictures. But then it was like, wow, that's interesting. Because they could see the, as I say, the wisdom in it, the anatomy in it. And so in one operating room, they made a coloring book. So every kid who came in had to fill in all the pages, and then we knew about the child. Let me give you an example, because this is what's so fascinating. The first page, it said, you'll meet an anesthesiologist who's dressed in an outfit that looks like green pajamas. Then it showed a picture of the operating room, a child sitting on the operating table, and the anesthesiologist. The child comes in and draws the anesthesiologist in red, where it said right there on the page, he's wearing green. Why would you draw him red? And what we learned from the anesthesiologist when he came out, and I pointed this to him, he said, yeah, his mother has muscular dystrophy, and he could have an adverse reaction to muscle relaxants, cause very severe complications. I said, then look at the last page. If he draws himself purple, a spiritual color, I'm canceling. He's going home. And on the last page, he used red and black, which related to my leg is going to hurt, and I'm not happy, after the surgery. But those were things that were fascinating. It's like, how did this kid know? Why isn't he following instructions? Because it's that inner wisdom that let him portray those things.
I'm looking at the tendency to declare war on just about all of society's ills, everything from diabetes to terrorism. And given that everything is energy and physics tells us that pushing against is met with an equal force, is it really wise to fight cancer or any other disease? Is there a better way to approach this?
No, I use the word eliminate. Because even when I'm giving instructions for the drawings, I would say draw yourself, your disease, your treatment, your immune system, eliminating the illness. Matter of fact, one of my patients, wonderful guy, conscientious objector, he went to an oncologist. He developed cancer. The dumb oncologist doesn't know his patient. Say he's treating a disease. So he says to him, I'm going to kill your cancer with this treatment. My friend said, I'm a Quaker. I'm a conscientious objector. I don't kill anything. And he turned and walked out of the office. Now, if he had said to him, I'm going to make you well, I got treatment for you, I don't think Dave would have walked away, But, he didn't go home and die. He lived over 12 years. But he did, an alternative treatment, you see. But that's the part I learned. And in his drawing, he's carrying the cancer cells away because he doesn't want to hurt anything. Mother Teresa said it very well. And on my website, the BernieSiegelMD.com, I wrote an article because of her. It's called Waging a War Against Cancer. What Mother Teresa said is, literally this happened. She was invited to an anti-war rally, and she said, I will not attend, which upset all these people. She said, however, if you ever have a peace rally, call me.
Yes.
And that's what I focus on. How can we heal your life? How can we bring peace to you and your mind? I love the symbolism of the still pond. That when the water is still, you see the true reflection and your own beauty. The ugly duckling knows he's a swan. But if he walks around saying, my mother threw me out, that rotten woman, what a horrible life I have now, I'm unattractive, he'd never see that he is a swan. He'd only see what's wrong with him. And I may add, this is true of so many beautiful people who just don't look in the mirror and see their beauty. And that's what I try to help people find, through love, through caring for them. I have to add the words of a grandmother when her teenage granddaughter had to stay at her house and said to her, I don't know how I look. I have to go to school. You don't have a full-length mirror. And the grandmother said, look in my eyes. You'll see how beautiful you are. And that's what we need to grow up with in order to have self-worth, self-esteem, and care for ourselves. If you don't grow up with love from your parents, you are in big trouble related to your health. If you live with the message they gave you, you're in big trouble, and the guilt, shame, and blame, and everything else. And you have to reparent yourself, really identify yourself as a child of God. And I mean that literally, that you are made of divine stuff, no matter what troubles your parents had and what they did to you.
Our guest on this Chi for Yourself is Dr. Bernie Siegel, author of The Art of Healing, Uncovering Your Inner Wisdom and Potential for Self-Healing. Doctors often give their patients a life expectancy in the form of a number, 3 months, 6 months to live. Is that really good practice? And if it's not, what's a better way?
No, it kills people. I know people, all these stories keep popping in my head. A man who had cancer developed cataracts, so he's having trouble reading the paper, playing with his grandchildren. So he went to his health plan and said, I want to have cataract surgery. They said, you're going to be dead in 6 months. We're not paying for surgery, if you're only going to live 6 months. He went home and died in a week. And the family, I was so happy, sued the health playing, because their words killed the man. I mean, he was doing fine, and then they took away the meaning of his life. And so again, all these things become significant. And I say to a lot of people when they're told when they're going to die, I say, tell you what, go to your doctor, say you'll bet $10,000, and I'll put up the money that you'll live twice as long as he predicted. Then the doctor says, well, yeah, it could happen. I'm not going to bet. Right, because you're not a statistic. I mean, I know people who had a 5% chance of living 2 years who are alive and well today. And see, what doctors should be saying to people is, yes, this is serious, life-threatening. Let me share with you what people who do well do, what their personalities are like, what they have done to live up to their potential. That's the word I use with people. What's your potential? And what I loved, actually, is finding in Solzhenitsyn's book, Cancer Ward, see, if you get well when you're not supposed to, what does a doctor call it? The doctor calls it a spontaneous remission, or a miracle for that matter. But what I've learned is, from Solzhenitsyn's book, the right words are self-induced healing. Because in his book, one of the men says to the others in the ward, oh, I found this book in the medical library, and it says here there are cases of self-induced healing, not recovery through treatment, but actual healing. See? And then I love the next thing. He said, it was as though self-induced healing flooded out of the great open book like a rainbow-colored butterfly. See, there's the picture again. How do you have it happen? You get your life in order, the rainbow, all your feelings, emotions, rhythm, harmony, order. And the other was the butterfly, the symbol of transformation. See, when those things are put together, then amazing things happen, because your body is told, I like life. And then it says, well, I'll do the best I can to keep you alive.
Yeah.
And wonderful things happen. So, it's part of why, literally, I keep this up, and why I was so thrilled to have the drawings put in a book. I mean, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I keep it up because, as I say, the potential. Somebody walks in, joins our group, I know, things can happen if they're willing to participate, take responsibility, and not see it as failing, if you know what I mean. I say we all have to die someday, so this is not about avoiding death, just as you talked about war. I tell people, don't try to not die, because you'll be very bitter and resentful when you do, about all the things you did and then died anyway, eating vegetables, exercising, meditating, whatever. I say, work at enjoying your life. Then you'll, get the benefits.
Speaking of having to die, when you look at the work of people like Dr. Kevorkian or any physician who helps a patient take his or her own life, you find a place for that anywhere in your own approach?
Yes, what I've learned is, and for myself as well, as I said, I was having pain dealing with death and complications, and, you have spiritual questions too. Why did God make a world like this, where people have to suffer and go through disease and all that stuff? And so, yeah, I pursued all those things, studied religion and everything else. And the other is it's left out of medical school, which is tragic, because I put some drawings, you see, by medical students. Draw yourself working as a doctor. Can you imagine no human being in the picture drawn by a medical student? And those are the instructions. And 90% of them draw themselves sitting behind a desk with a diploma and no patience. So, you see, if Kevorkian in medical school had been approached, like all the students, and said, why are you choosing pathology as a specialty? Or why are you choosing surgery? Why be an oncologist? So that they would look at not just, I want to be a doctor, I'm fascinated by the human body, but what are the healthy and unhealthy reasons? Are you picking oncology because your parents, that's why you want to be a pathologist? And rather than kill people, how about running a hospice and helping people live and die, but in a healthy way? And even your aggression, because the psychiatrist Carl Menninger had me laughing. He said, Bertie, what if you became a surgeon as a reaction formation to your destructive tendencies? And I love telling people that. Why did you become a surgeon? Oh, I like to cut people up, but I don't want to go to jail, so I became a surgeon and I get paid for it. And they look at you like, what? But, but those are things, I've never thought about that in medical school. But, yes, the psychiatrists, the psychologists think about those things. And, what we used to say in medical school is all the troubled kids became psychiatrists because they needed help with their issues. And that's something else. You're not going to be a good psychiatrist if you treat everybody as if they have your problem. Mm-hmm. So we need to understand ourselves. And one more theme that one of our kids taught me, because at an art class in grade school, he filled the canvas with words. And when he brought it home and walked in, I realized it could be swords. Because if you leave no space between words, it starts spelling swords. Mm-hmm. I realized you can kill a cure with your words. So we need to be trained to communicate with patients, to speak to them in a way, I call it deceiving people into health. Almost, in a hypnotic style that induces positive effects, not negative ones. And to also understand ourselves. Because it took 50 years after I graduated from medical school, before one of the deans at my medical school answered my letter. Because every time there was a new dean, I sent a letter saying, you made me a wonderful technician, a good surgeon, but you never taught me how to take care of myself or my patients. Nobody answered the letter. That's the part that drove me nuts. Mm-hmm. That they don't even answer a letter from a former student. And I mean, it could have been a form letter, saying thank you for your comments. Okay, at least I know somebody read it. But to not even have an answer until a woman became the dean down at Cornell in New York. She answered me. So at least I know she read the letter, and if I have an effect, fine. If not, okay. But at least I've shared my feelings with somebody.
Mm-hmm. We talk about those who are actually facing health challenges, but what are some important points that caregivers have to keep in mind?
Well, I like what Joseph Campbell said. He said, when you're going through hell, ask yourself, what am I to learn from this experience? And I would say that to both the patient. So, yes, you can turn a curse into a blessing. Like hunger gets you to seek nourishment. It can lead you to do what's right for you in your life. And I would say to the caregiver as well as the person with the problem, say, what am I to learn from this experience? And I do a lot of caregiving in our family, not because I'm a doctor, but I mean as a family member. And I learned that, for me, the answer was be compassionate. Because what I realized was when I act like a doctor, it doesn't make people happy. Because then I'm prescribing, telling them how to behave, what to do. I'm not listening. I'm not, making them feel better by expressing my love and compassion for them. So I know it is very helpful when you don't like how you're behaving or the person you're giving the care to doesn't like the way you've acted. Stop and say, what am I to learn from this? And let me give you a simple example. Because if my wife is sitting at the kitchen table and says, honey, get me a glass of water. And I say to her, you need more exercise. You've got to be more active. Get up, go to the sink, get yourself a glass of water. I don't feel good, neither does she. Mm-hmm. But if I say, okay, honey, I'll be right back, I'll go get the water, and I bring it to her, hey, I get a hug and a kiss, and I feel good, and she feels good. There's been compassion, love. It makes all the difference in the world in that simple act. But when I'm the doctor, do this, do that, take this,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. One last question, we'll let you go. With so much emphasis on finding new and more powerful drugs, are we going to see these nurturing modalities come a bit more into the mainstream soon?
Yeah, I think that, I'll tell you, what upsets me, I know it may sound crazy to people, but I wish we would spend all the money we're spending on outer space on inner space. Think about this. What if we studied the human body the way we're exploring outer space? Think of what we could have accomplished by now in keeping ourselves healthier, communicating with genes. Because these things go on. When I say the potential, I mean, think of how smart bacteria are. They alter genes and resist antibiotics. I mean, all living things have this incredible potential built into them. You know, if you cut your finger, it heals. Hey, who taught it how to do that?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if we study the human body, we will understand disease, and then we can correct it. You know, it's like telling a cancer cell, hey, stop that, behave yourself. Not trying to kill it, and protecting ourselves and keeping ourselves a lot healthier. Yes, we're mortal, but I don't think we have any trouble living to be 100, 120, you know, if we love and care about ourselves, so we're not self-destructive and into all kinds of addictions. But if we bring people up to care about themselves and study the human body, yeah, and it's beginning to shift. As I say, you see research happening, things going on. I was even reading several articles recently about the brain. You know, why do we sleep? Because I've talked about that a lot. I felt that we sleep in order to dream, to get this consciousness and this wisdom to present itself to us.
Mm-hmm.
And this article is about how more fluid accumulates in the brain to nourish it and clean it out. So, you know, it was almost like I could have changed the research article to discuss dreams and drawings the way they were discussing nutrition. So I think that sleeping nourishes us in many ways. And if we studied the human body and spent all that, you know, millions and billions of dollars doing it, oh, boy, would we be in a really fascinating place. Because I really feel the human body is as fascinating as outer space.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when one cell can create a human being, think about that. All the parts of us. I mean, how does it know how to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is incredible intelligence. Just, you know, I don't want to keep you beyond the time you have, but one point I make is that if you take a cell, you know, a brain cell, and put it in the intestine, see, while a fetus is developing, it goes back to the brain. It knows where it belongs. And that's the part that fascinates me, you know, when I read about this science, to realize, hey, look at the intelligence within us, knowing what to do, what each cell is supposed to do. So, as I said, send it love messages, and it will send the right message to your body and to the genes, see, which don't make the decisions. The chemistry that affects them tells them. So a cancer gene could stay in somebody's body for 100 years and never cause cancer because nothing turns it on. You know, I always say it's like the light switch. You got to flip it to get the light to go on.
Exactly.
Same thing with the genes. So keep sending your body healthy messages so the healthy genes stay active and not the disease ones.